Okay, everybody, we are with Heather Eck today, and this is a little bit of a different spin. We are talking about coloring betrayal. What the heck does that mean? Well, Heather Eck is going to share with us exactly what that means. Welcome, Heather.
Thanks for having me. So nice to be here.
So let's just get started with your background because when we speak about coloring betrayal, it sounds kind of artistic, and who knows where we're going to go with this. So give us a sense of where this all began.
Sure. I was a very creative kid, very artistic kid who sort of, had those conversations with your parents when you're little that say, I want to be an artist, I want to be a rock star, really wanting to follow that creative path. And then, reality sets in, practicality sets in, and then sort of moved in the direction of human resources, really based on a conversation I had with my dad a long time ago. So I was the first person in my family to go to college. I minored in art while I was sort of exploring corporate America and seeing what was there for me in the HR space. Art was sort of always there. It was always sort of in the periphery for me with little hobbies and things like that that were sort of like whispering to me. And then a couple of years ago, I met with a spiritual teacher and we sort of talked about what's my purpose here? What's my gift? What am I here to do or to offer? Because at the time I was really, really struggling with my own spirituality. I was really sort of feeling stuck. I was in a job that really exhausted me in the kind of way that no amount of time off or vacation was going to fix. And I was talking to my husband at one point and he's like, where can we send you on a retreat for a couple weeks that's going to make you feel whole again? And there really wasn't anything. And that's when I kind of moved back into art. I sort of let art into my life again and started exploring it a bit more. And then sort of discovered that what I was experiencing and had kind of taken for granted throughout my life, like the way that color was showing up for me or the way that I would experience it was unique, and that I hadn't really paid much attention to it. And then I started paying attention to it more and more and learned what synesthesia was and learned about clairsentience and learned about these feelings or these expressions that I was getting in my body, in my mind, in my intuition that were sort of guiding me into this new path. And so I sort of openly started to move into art.
And I want to pursue so many different roads. You just, we can take right with that. But when you say how color was expressing itself, what do you mean?
Yeah. So when I was little, I always paid attention to color. It was, all kids love color. It was one of those things where you're like, everybody asks, what's your favorite color? And you're like, mine's blue. Mine was always purple. Which later come to find out purple is about your connection to a higher power. And so for me, I was asking, or I was like seeking that, and purple was sort of ministering to me. But I would notice where color would show up in movies or TV shows in a way that other people didn't, where I'd go, oh, everybody in that scene is wearing blue. I wonder what that's about. Or I would sort of like pay attention to it. And then in the job that I was working on many, many, many years later, I started to notice as people came into my office, and I was sort of like the spiritual HR gal, I had all the crystals on my desk. I was the one that people would come to and say, I just had this dream. Can you help me understand what it's about?
And that's
People
not
would come.
typical for HR, from what I know.
No, exactly. I would start to see color sort of billow out around somebody's head. And I would think, oh, that's kind of weird. What's that about? Is something wrong with me? Like, what's going on? And then sort of learned that aura colors were starting to present themselves to me.
And
And
and I want to dive into that too, because
yeah,
you could have just been freaked out by it and shut it down. And that's what I hear from so many people who all of a sudden they see something, they hear something, they feel something, and it seems too different from what everybody else is doing. So they just shut it down. And then years later, they bring it back and it becomes something that they express in such a beautiful way. So when you first started seeing auras and stuff, like what, it was, did you think, oh, it's like maybe something reflection of something from outside coming in, or what did you think? And then what did you make of it? And then what did it grow into?
yeah. So I think I grew up with my dad being very open about like the mysteries of the universe. Like, so I was always very open-minded to
Mhm.
spirituality and things that we couldn't really explain. And so I'm so grateful for that. So when it started happening, I was just sort of curious about it and thought, okay, that's kind of weird. Let me see, does everybody have the same color or are some colors different? And then I started to kind of dig into, well, what does that color mean? When do I see it the most? You know, if I relax my eyes a little bit, can I see it more? And so I really started to follow my curiosity about it. And that's where I sort of moved into, well, what are the chakras and what are the colors of the chakras and what do those mean? And when I experience somebody through a particular color, what does that tell me? So I was really at a point where I needed that like cushion of spirituality. I needed that cushion of curiosity to sort of help me through that time,
Mhm.
um, because it showed up at the right time for me.
And for example, someone would walk into your office and give me like a few examples of what color aura they would have and what that meant according to their personality or what they were expressing to you.
Yeah. A lot of times, so I would sort of feel each day when I pulled into the parking lot, I would sort of feel in my body what was happening. I would already get a sense of we're at a high anxiety day, or this feels like there's tension here already. I was sort of tuning into my clairsentience there and really feeling my way into, okay, it feels like it's going to be tricky or that something's going on in there. Then if somebody came into my office, you know, it wasn't something that happened all the time, but it was if I was in conversation with somebody where they were really being honest and open with me, I was really being honest and open with them, that I would sort of start to see that. And for a little while it was sort of this soft blue, kind of sea foamy green color. And blue for me is a color of the throat. And so I would always kind of pay attention to, what is this person going through, or what are they trying to communicate? And I think because I was also going through the experience of needing to make a change, needing to make some kind of transition out of a place that made me feel so challenged every day, that I was also attracting that kind of person too. And so the conversations that we got into were a lot of sort of mirroring for each other what we were experiencing
Mhm.
and what it was that we were hoping to do. So there was a lot of effort going into the throat there for being able to communicate what you need to see change, what you want, what you desire,
Mhm.
and to be able to express that in a way with somebody who could go, yeah, I see you, I understand, I feel the same way,
Mhm.
if that makes
Wow.
sense.
And were there other colors that showed up in people's auras and
Mm,
what was going on with them?
yeah, not at that time. It was really similar colors, I think, because we were all sort of in the same environment. When I started doing paintings for people, that's when I started to go, okay, I see green for you, I see pink for you, you're red. But that was sort of outside of that work environment after I got out of there.
So it sounds like that whole HR position got it going, and then it you just took it to the next level. What's the synesthesia?
Synesthesia is actually a condition where when you're taking in something through your senses, your brain sort of crosses the signals. And so if I listen to music, I'm hearing the music, but my brain is also showing me images or symbols or colors for how I'm seeing what the music looks like. So for somebody who would just hear music, you go, oh, well, that sounds really nice. And I say, oh, that sounds really nice. And I also see that these notes are purple, or that's an orange note, or that's a you know, it makes like a star shaped sound. So it's where my senses get crossed.
Oh wow. Okay. So give us an example of like a song or an experience where we could actually practically see that, we could experience that. What do you mean?
Yeah, so a really great way to practice it is, so only about 4% of the population have synesthesia, but what I like to help people understand is that you can sort of practice it. So if you're listening to your favorite song, like I love the composer Ludovico Einaudi, his music is just really calming and lovely. And so if I'm listening to his music, then I'll just take a pencil or a marker and just sort of like draw or sketch what I'm seeing. And that's a really great way for your listeners too to kind of calm themselves down, is to just listen and let your hand sort of draw or sketch what it is that you see in your mind's eye as you're listening to the music.
It's so interesting you're saying this. I remember we had uh, a retreat for transform members within the PBT Institute. Transform members are the ones that work with me along with everybody within PBT, our coaches and everything. And it's very common when someone heals from betrayal all of a sudden they have a new business, a new passion project, a new something that just shows up because they moved through so much. And we actually had one of our members who created an art business after her trauma, and her other business had nothing in the world to do with it at all. And I remember, and this is, you're just reminding me of this because she actually took the group through this process where she created sort of a scene of when they were deep in their pain, and then had them draw. And then as they were moving through their experience and what they drew, and it was shocking to see the difference in the sharp lines and even the colors from let's say when they were deep in their trauma to when they moved through it. And what was even so, I found so much more interesting, so many of their drawings were so similar. The
Mhm.
colors they used, when they were in their trauma, the look of it, and then when they were healing. And it sounds kind of similar to what you're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's such a great example of therapeutic art and being able to use art as a means for not just healing, but sort of getting closer to understanding your feelings about something. And so I just taught a class, it's kind of similar, where we were like, let's think about the art of letting go. So what is it? What number one, what do you want to let go of? And we take some time to write down the thoughts of what do we want to let go of this year? What are we willing to move away from? And then creating. So then I say, okay, you choose those things. Now, in your mind, what color are they? What shape are they? What form do they take? And they create a canvas based on the things they want to let go of. And then we do the opposite where we say, okay, now what do you want to create? What do you want to let in? What do you want to be more open to? And do the same thing. Now, what color does it feel like? What shape does it look like? And then create something based on that. And there's so much insight in just the ability to sit down and sort of imagine or feel your way into, or just allow those things to come in, because they are so similar. There were a lot of people sitting at the table who were like, I want to let go of fear, and fear looks like spiky stars to me. Or I want to bring in more love, and love feels like circles to me. So it's fascinating. Art therapy and therapeutic art are just incredible tools for healing.
And I'm always trying to get into the minds of my listeners, viewers, and I can imagine them saying, but I'm not creative. What do you say to someone like that?
Oh gosh, I always say we're all creative. We were made to be creative. And that doesn't mean that you have to be a globally renowned collected artist in a museum, right? We're creative through, the ability to create delicious meals for our family. We're creative in the way that we, write thank you notes to each other. We're creative in the events that we plan. We're creative in how we honor and celebrate our friends and family. So we're all creative. And when you're making therapeutic art, or you're making art just for fun, I always tell people, this is art with a lowercase a. It's meant for you. You don't have to have any expectation that you're going to A, show it to anybody. You don't have to. And B, just create for creation's sake, because just the sheer fact of you moving your hand, or knitting, or sewing, or drawing, or sketching, or listening to music, dancing, doing that for 15 minutes or more instantly lowers your cortisol levels.
Mm.
And so it's actually helping you relax and heal, just because you're open to creating. So we're all creative.
You said something so important there. Create just for creation's sake. And there are so many people listening and watching who are those type A. Like, what do you mean just for creation's sake? Like, what's the goal? What's the purpose? Right. And it sounds so counterintuitive, but having participated in things similar to this, I went into it like, what is the purpose? And what is this going to teach me? And I'm so not creative in that way, in that sort of artistic, like, drawing, whatever. But it's really true. You're so right. Like,
Mhm.
for example, I remember going through my PhD program, and there was this class. It was just a one-time thing. And it was so interesting because it was this team, and they brought all of these art materials, and it started with a box, all different shapes and sizes of boxes, and then they had all these different things that you were supposed to add to the box, to decorate the box, put inside the box, whatever. And by the time I was done, it was this box I created represented, could not have been a better representation of me. It was like even the way, how it was a little bit rough, but a little bit, bright and shiny, and how there was, what was in the box waiting to be expressed. And it's really true. And if in the beginning, if I just stayed with this, I'm not creative, I can't do something like this, right? I never would have had that experience. But allowing yourself just to explore and see what shows up
Mhm.
just
That's right.
says so much. So let's get back to, I love, and I'm so intrigued by just the whole aura thing, and just how different people express different auras and what that means. Do you like, did it later become something where it was almost like you had a little, uh what's that called, where there's that, the representation of what something means, like a, like if you're looking at like a map, and then it has the thing on the side, which means like this means this means this. Did you see different colors eventually? Like you mentioned blue. Did it grow to, oh, this person has orange, this means this person has this, it means that?
Yeah, it did, absolutely. It's one of those things where I'm sort of building a like a symbol journal or like a color journal, because for me, and my gift continues to grow, and as I get more and more open to it, I'm learning more about how it operates too, which is fascinating to me. So before, when I would see somebody's color, I would go, "Oh, your color's this."
Mhm,
And then what I realized was that that color was actually showing me where they dwell in their body or where they dwell in their spirit.
mhm,
And so then I would say, okay, well, that blue means this, that maybe you're having trouble expressing yourself. And so to help you with that, I'm going to prescribe this color. So it's almost like, here's where you sort of sit. So for grief, I use this as an example a lot. A lot of us are in grief, and I don't even think that we're aware of it sometimes. A lot of people sit in grief for a number of reasons. And that shows up to me as like a blue gray. And that blue gray color to me shows me they have grief somewhere that they haven't fully expressed yet, or that they're just continuing to contend with, because grief sort of lies dormant, I think, for a little while and then comes back up again when we least expect it.
mhm,
And so I might say, okay, here's where you are. And my conversations with clients, I'll call them, are really intimate. And so as much as somebody wants to share, I allow them to share and hold space for them.
mhm,
And then we'll sort of talk a little bit about it. And then I'll say, and then here's your painting. And this color that I'm offering you is supposed to be prescriptive to help lift you up out of it. And so a lot of times for people who are in that grief state, it might be orange because that's uplifting and optimistic.
mm.
And that might help to give them a little bit more of a boost to help feel a bit better when they need it.
Right. Now, of course, everybody listening and watching is healing from some type of betrayal. Is there a specific color you see when someone is moving through something like that?
Yeah, I think betrayal can come in so many different forms. For me, it shows up as like the first color I saw was like a dark brown red.
Mhm,
And then I saw like a dark green. So dark brown red is sort of a muddy color. Red is associated with the root chakra, which is about our sense of stability, security, family. I'll use the word tribe, about the people that you surround yourself with. And when you have betrayal in that space, it kind of makes you feel like you're off your footing, you've lost your grounding. And so that's that dark red. And then the dark green, of course, is for the heart chakra. So if I see a bright, vibrant green for somebody, then your heart is in a healthy place. You accept yourself unconditionally, love yourself and love others. If I see sort of a murky green or like an army green, that's
mhm.
showing me that the heart has been either broken, or that there's something there where there's not that trust, or there's not that acceptance, or that there's something there that feels a bit rocky, like it's not fully open to the experience of love.
Oh, that's so interesting. And you're looking at me. Is there something you're seeing? I'm sure the audience would want to know.
I did see a little bit of that blue kind of floating around your head a little earlier.
Uh-huh.
If you can let me just 1 second, I'll just do a quick
Yeah.
scan and see if there's anything standing out for you. So I see a little bit of yellow around you, which might tell me that you spend a lot of time in your solar plexus. And our solar plexus is a place where we find our sense of optimism, self-esteem, and confidence.
Mhm.
And so when that color shows up, it sort of tells me a little bit like there's an opportunity for you to stand in your power, to be able to express yourself exactly as you are, but also to allow yourself to be seen for exactly who you are, and to receive that without any expectation or without any or with unconditional acceptance.
Mhm. Oh, beautiful. Okay, that's good to know. Okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's also a great color for optimism and positivity too.
Okay. Oh, that's so nice because that's truly how I feel. I mean, I always, betrayal is one of those things. It's one of the hardest things to move through, but the potential for transformation is for everyone, every single person who's been through it. So I want to just get super practical. So they've been betrayed, they're trying all these different modalities and they're like, I I think I could learn to express myself a little differently through color. And if that could help me, let me try it. What do you recommend to that person?
I definitely think that art is a great modality for helping to move through that, whether it is writing, singing, dancing, or making art in some way. I think sometimes without even knowing it, color is communicating to us in some way. So if you're somebody who's going through the experience of betrayal, you might find yourself wearing colors that are keeping your energy on a bit of a lower vibration. So maybe you're somebody who wears a lot of black, or you wear a lot of gray, or you just haven't allowed a lot of color into your life for some reason. So then to kind of pay attention to, am I doing that? Number one. And then number two, what color did I love as a kid? What color made me the happiest there? And to be able to go back and invite some of that color in. Because there's a lot of information I think we can get from our childhood. Our gifts show up early in our childhood. I think those colors that we're attracted to early on are communicating something about us too. So I would say if you're kind of in that place where you are reaching for the black sweater in your closet every day, switch it up. Add a little purple, add some white, add some yellow. Try to invite those colors that are going to minister to your spirit in a bit more higher vibration. Because just wearing a bright color sometimes lifts your spirits, and people notice and they might say, "You look great. What changed?" And it could just be a little bit of a color shift for you.
And you know what's so interesting? I remember a couple of years ago having my colors done. I was part of a group, and there was somebody there who was just doing colors for everybody. And I was like, oh, let me grab this appointment and just see what I'm about and the colors I should be wearing. And I found it so fascinating because she was showing me how certain colors I was wearing, and she would hold up like a little swatch, and it just didn't feel so good. But then when it was an appropriate color for me or a color I should be wearing, it just felt easier. It felt better. It felt like,
Mhm.
that's just right. And I remember leaving that experience and filling up 3 garbage bags of clothes to donate. Yeah, because I was like, these are not my colors. And this is what was so interesting too. She said, let's say about every, I don't know, 10 years or so, or if you've done a good amount of personal development, you need to have them done because you change.
You do change. That's right.
And those colors then would feel different for you and would resonate differently. And it's so true. Even like I remember there was this jacket and I absolutely loved it. And every time I put it on, I took it off because there was something about it. I was like, it just didn't feel right. It's something, but I loved it. I loved looking at it and it was great. And it turned out it was totally the wrong color. And that's
Oh
why.
my gosh.
Yeah. Yeah. And so it just sat in my closet forever. And I was like, I just like looking at it, but that doesn't mean it's the right color for me. So color
Right.
really has such a tremendous impact on just who we are, what we do, just all of it. As we wrap up, Heather, what do you want to make sure everyone knows?
Um, I love that story you just shared. I think I would love for everybody to just understand that color holds energy. Just as you go through a change, sometimes you might get a haircut or get bangs. You change something because you're cutting off that energy or you're changing that energy. Color's the same way. And when we go through, when we first understand and pay attention to color, we can sort of see where color's communicating. So if you're going through a transition of some kind, you might notice that you're oddly attracted to the color yellow for now, and you just can't get enough of it. So get curious about it. If you find that you're pulling out the same green shirt every day, look up what green means and try to understand a bit more about it because it's offering you some sort of healing. It's offering you something that's ministering to your spirit.
And you know what? It's such a great point, and it's really true. Like, here's another quick story. There was a million years ago. I decided I want to be blonde. Like, anybody, if you're watching the video, like, Heather's blonde, she's absolutely stunning. For me, being blonde was so not a fit, and I didn't know it wasn't a fit. And what I noticed though was I just kept putting on more and more makeup, like to try to make up for, like, there was something wasn't working, and I thought the makeup would make the difference, and it wasn't. It was, I was not supposed to be blonde. That's not who I am. And
Yeah.
when you're wearing the colors, even the color of your hair that feels right, it just kind of works. It just, and instead of trying to make up for it by doing all these other things, just finding your colors, whether it's your clothes, your hair, whatever, it just makes life a lot easier. Heather, where do we go to find more about where you are and what you do?
So I'm very active on Instagram at Heather Eck Artist. And my website, I've got a couple of freebies for folks, including a chance to chat with me for a color discovery session. So I can share a little bit about your colors with you and what they mean. And that's at heathereck.com/thank you.
Oh, I love that. Okay. And we'll have everything in the show notes. Heather, I want to thank you so much for your wisdom, your insight, your gifts. And I know everyone is going to get a bit more colorful based on what you just shared. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.